Welcome to Granddaddy Speaks. I'm Andy Beverly, and today we're going to talk about the origin of something that people buy in restaurants and eat when they order seafood, fish particularly, called hush puppies. And that's a kind of a southern thing, but it's certainly widely spread about the South and somewhere in some parts of the West as well. Now, when the pioneers moved out of the places they had been, they took dogs with them because they needed dogs to bark and tell them people were coming, either friends or enemies, or that bears or panthers or something were coming. And so they had dogs. They needed dogs, and they had dogs. And you've seen movies, many of you, about this dog and that dog being helpful to people in their life. So the pioneers weren't set up to have dog food. There wasn't any stores to go to. They were way out in the woods. There might be 2 or 3 of them with log cabins in a little small, not even a village, just a little small congregation of people. And so they'd all have dogs, and the dogs had to eat, and they would get hungry, and they would be crying outside when people were inside cooking supper and making food. And corn was fairly plentiful. It was there because that was something that they knew how to grow, the farmers. And they could dry it, they could eat it when it was fresh, like corn on the cob, and they could dry it and turn it into cornmeal and to grits. And so the pioneers picked up a habit. The dogs would be crying out there, and when the family was finished frying the food in whatever kind of grease they were using, pig lard or cow fat, because they didn't have the oils that we have today. They had just what was there in the woods. And they'd make it hot and melt it and cook their food in it. And when they got through doing that, they would take and moisten some cornmeal and put it in little wads or balls, and they would fry it into little biscuit-shaped things that they would take out to the dogs. And the poor dogs would be out there sitting there crying, "Oh, please feed us." And guess what they would do? They would give them these pieces of fried cornmeal, and guess what they'd say? "Hush, puppy, you're going to be fed now. Hush, puppy, hush, puppy." And strangely, when the farmers found something that they could eat, a deer or a wild hog or something that was edible, possum, raccoon, anything you could give some protein to your family without killing the milk cow, then they would take what was left, the parts of the animal that weren't particularly edible to humans, and they chop it all up, and they would put it in the hush puppies before they fried them. And that led to something that Americans today do, particularly Southerners. I've never seen it in any other country that I've been to, and I've hunted in 13 countries. But guess what? We put in our hush puppy. We chop up onions and sometimes a few other things, bell peppers or something, and put them in our hush puppies before we fry them. And they learned that from the pioneers who were chopping up raccoon insides or possum insides. So there's the history of hush puppies. Hush puppy, we're going to feed you now.